of Saskatchewan. In Saskatchewan, Yellow Quill's my reserve. I'm a 60s scooper. My spirit name is Crimson Thunder. My voice is what um, my name consists of and what it's all about. So we usually open up a circle with a prayer, and an elder would open it up. I do not call myself an elder. A knowledge keeper would be the closest thing if I had to take a title, and I prefer no titles, really. Um, but I am a drummer and I am a singer. I'll take those titles, and they are also our prayers. So I will open up with a prayer the way that I can open up with a prayer, and that's with a song. I'm welcoming everybody. We're stepping outside of the box today, so I think the song may be outside of the box. I'm waiting for it to come to me, but I'm looking at the sun today, and I'm looking at everything around me, and I am very grateful. So I'm going to start with being thankful. So it's a very simple song. It's sung 4 times, once for every direction, and I'm thanking Creator for everything. Miigwech netawena Miigwech netawena Miigwech Miigwech, miigwech, Miigwech netawena Miigwech netawena Miigwech 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 netawena Miigwech netawena Miigwech Miigwech Miigwech
Miigwech.
So that song is a song of thankfulness, and I'm thanking Creator for everything I can see. But I start out nice and soft, and it's a slow song, and it teaches patience because you always want to get to the end of the song to start over again to get through the song so we can start the business, right? And I've learned patience through that particular song is because it is a slow song. And I do speed it up so I can get through to the end. And I have to control myself not to speed up to get through to the end. And I think that's part of stepping outside of the box and slowing down. I think it's part of all those teachings that you have inside of you that you're not really aware that you have these teachings. And it's that sacredness within this circle that is going to help us find that space. Miigwech.
Thank you, Michelle. So my name is Renee Bourgeois, and I'm also on the National Steering Committee of Writing Relations. And we were to have some of our other colleagues with us today to kind of get us started, but I think we all have a lot of great wisdom in here that we can kind of pull together. And I think one of the things that we've learned over the journey, especially in the West Hub, is the power of the circle and how critical it is. But really grounding in this idea that writing relations is about kind of three core principles. One being women-led, not being exclusive women, but being like heart-centered and grounded, kind of moving beyond that patriarchal lens. But then there's that writing relations piece of seeking for just society and seeking to write relations in Canada. But thirdly is like popular education. And through popular education really means, and I think it fits so well with the circle because it's about, you know, our connections with each other, but it's knowing and learning together, I think is always the beauty of popular education. So today what we kind of wanted to do is just having a space to talk more about the circle and how or what our learnings and stuff like that were. So what I'm thinking is what we can do is we just want to, I mean, we want to go circle. I know it's kind of weird, we can't do it on here, but what we thought what we could do is if we can go around first and introduce ourselves and what hub are you with, where are you in Canada or Turtle Island or wherever you are, but what if you were to share like what have been one of your maybe some of your most important learnings while in circle, and let's kind of build from that. Does that sound good? So I'll put myself on the spot first. I don't know. Okay. So you heard my name. I'm here in Emiskwichi Waskahegan, which is Treaty 6 territory, otherwise known as Edmonton. So hard. In this circle, I found my experience with the circle is that, I mean, I've struggled with it at times, been really beautiful, but as a facilitator, I've really struggled with knowing how to correct the circle when we're in an instance and, you know, maybe I haven't, one of my learnings is I don't establish parameters very well. And so I'll, you know, start the circle. And I had this experience yesterday as we were doing a circle, a live in-person circle, by the way, which was amazing to see people again. But I always find like when it starts to go around and people are sharing, there's always somebody who has a comment to add to somebody's and it bounces back and forth. And I always struggle with trying to correct that space. But I've learned to just be patient sometimes. And I always find what I've learned from the circle in many ways is just the patience with it, not having a formal strict agenda. I always find with the circle, we always end up getting through an agenda without even having it there, if that makes sense. But the power for me too is just that we're all there in this equal space and in that capacity. I wish I had something more brilliant to say right now. I feel like my brain is transitioning, but I feel like I'm gonna just, what we'll do is we'll just kind of work through our circle list, and I'll call you out, but just reflecting on that. And I think we can all kind of, after we get through this first circle, we can kind of build from there. Because that, I think that's what I see the beauty of the circle is. I see this like spiraling out, you know, we start at this center point where we're having the conversation, and I find it just grows and grows. And I think as a facilitator and as an educator, I've just had to learn to trust that. And I think through writing relations and the circles that we've done, I've learned to feel okay with not feeling like you don't have control, because it always goes where it needs to go. So why don't I, Michelle, is it okay if I maybe pass to you as the second person to talk about, like, you know, what are your most important learnings while in circle, and start us off?
Hey, Butch, I think it's listening. It's being in the moment and not thinking about what's going to happen tonight for supper. It's not thinking about what the next meeting is going to be all about. It's about hearing what takes place in the circle is as important as the moment you're in. And I have been chastised many times for speaking out of turn. And I'm cool with that because that teaches me that I need to shut up and listen a little bit harder. I find that it's okay to respond to people if it's a positive way, because we're not trying to bring people down. We're not trying to correct people. What we're trying to do is empower people through this circle. And empowerment is very, very important when you're just learning to discover your voice. I didn't always know I could sing as loud as I do. I didn't know I had that voice that I can bring forward, and people are going to listen to me as they're doing right now. This is just amazing stuff, man. People are listening to me. And I think that is the power of the circle, because everybody has that opportunity that they're going to be listened to. They're going to be heard. They're going to know how you're thinking and feeling and being. And that is the most important part of the circle. And things sometimes don't always get resolved in the circle itself, and that's okay. It can bring us to more circles. And I have one beautiful rule that I really like when I'm in a gathering, okay? If we're voting on things, and that could be a circle too, a circle of votes, if that's a process you want to use, everybody agrees. I'll be the one that says nay. And I always believe that there should be one naysayer so the conversation never closes down. You can always keep it open for future conversation. And when you've got that one no, that means there's somebody there that wants to talk about it later on. And you have to recall that nay and say, hey, is this effective today? Does that person feel the same way? Is there improvements that can be made? And I find that a lot of people don't necessarily follow after the circle. And that is where we're doing the work. The work is the coming together and talking about it, but there's other works that needs to be done when the circle is closed. And also to leave a seat open for somebody just because you want people to continue joining.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, so Angelica, I have you next on the list, and thinking about what are some of your most important learnings of circle to date?
I think that one of my most important learnings, I want to say, is a combination of listening and kindness, because it's a special kind of listening. Is it's like listening with your heart instead of just listening with your mind. So instead of thinking like, what are this person thinking, and processing, is just like sitting there with the words, and allowing people to, or allowing yourself actually to just be kind with those words, whatever those words are. And that kind of like that in many times those words are might have make me feel uncomfortable. but because it's that is like sitting with that discomfort. It's just like not feeling that I need to respond or correct or but just letting those words sit and stay with us. And I think that is it's kindness, um and that also avoids the need of be processing all the time, like what else, just like let it happen. I find one of my challenges, I think, is, and I know that the circle process is not bound by time, but the society we're in is bound by time.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it really challenging to know that I have to go to the next meeting or pick up my daughter or whatever it is, and there's a time that is bounding us, and so how to gently with that kindness move people towards the circle process without allowing it to happen, but at the same time being mindful of the time, which is always a word that is a sentence that we use a lot, and that makes people right away aware of, is that it doesn't let kind of like
Deflate.
the words come out, but just like it tense you up, right? Be mindful of time. So I have to be mindful of time. I can't say all the things that I have in my head. I just have to be mindful. So it's a challenge for me. It's a challenge to know that we have to complete things at this time, even though the process we're using might not be bounded by the same perception of time.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the things that is challenging. And then introducing people to the circle process, I think, is the other thing that it's difficult, but because it always takes a lot of feelings, and we're in a society that is not used to those emotions, and so it's good as a warning to like, okay, this is gonna happen, but actually seeing it happen, is where it happens. so yeah, that introduction, I find it really, really interesting. That's it.
That's awesome. And what I'll do is we're going through is I'll capture some of these challenges we're talking about, because then we can kind of dig in a little bit deeper and learn from each other. So thank you for that, Angelica. That was lovely. Terry, I've got you up next. How about you?
I'm Terry Sleva from Treaty 4. And I guess what really, when I started coming to this group, I realized the respect that people show to each other and to all other things. And to me, that brings a calm that I feel that I'm able to I'm able to function better. I'm in a wheelchair, and therefore there are limitations, but to feel whole is an awesome feeling. To be bringing knowledge and sharing knowledge and learning. Learning's the big one. And I absolutely love that everything is being taught from the Indigenous perspective, because that is the only right way. That's about it, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Awesome. Okay, Lisa, I've got you up next.
Wow. I'm starting to feel and that the circle, I'm more relaxed. A big transition from any meetings that I've been in, which was more hierarchical, more domineering, more assertive and aggressive. I find that the circle is equitable, and it is teaching me that as I listen to others, I'm aware how my thoughts are changing, and I am not focused on an agenda, like my agenda,
that there's usually maybe a topic that we're thinking of, but as I hear people speak and speak from heart, then I automatically start to speak from heart and listen. And I think that's the biggest thing in the circle is listening and learning to speak from heart. Also learning to listen without judgment and holding judgment is being a big, the circle provides that opportunity to do that. I agree with Angelica in terms of time frames and that kind of thing. It presents this challenge, but it's also amazing on the other side that sometimes it just moves so quickly and things get done within the right amount of space and time. I'm also learning about process, that the circle has this process and I have to learn to trust it and trust the outcome. So that's one of the big ones. It's and also to learn to sit with things that you want to challenge, or you might not think that the other person's perspective is clear or accurate, but learn to sit with that and be silent and knowing that that will be addressed later.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my thoughts.
Awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Lisa. All right, Sarah, I have you up next. What are some of your biggest learnings in circle, or even challenges?
Well, sometimes it can be a challenge to follow the conversation if there is no closed captioning. As I do describe myself as conversationally deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, I can hear you, I can see you, but I can't process the words properly, and thus it comes in as gulp quite often if I don't have the text to support it. So sometimes following the conversation is not the easiest thing, but I've learned to follow the conversation, and people have learned to accommodate me, and I like that I can learn the way I did when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I took Indigenous courses. I was in an Indigenous program at school, and I just like the fact that I'm able to enjoy that all over again.
What have been some of your greatest learnings in circle, or what do you think are really important pieces of being in circle?
Just being able to share with others.
Yeah.
I like being able to share. We learn from each other.
That shared learning, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. Miranda, how about you?
Yeah. I'm Miranda. I'm from Regina and Treaty 4. I guess my learnings from Circle has been, I guess, patience,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess self-awareness, because I have a tendency to maybe unintentionally react, and maybe somebody says something and my facial expression is not what it should be. So I always hope I'm not visibly reacting. So I think a lot of the times to avoid that and just to focus on listening and not reacting, I just keep my head down a lot, and then I can, just focus on listening to the person. Listen with my ears, not my eyes. And yeah, no, and I guess I miss being in physical circles, because I think there is some energy you get from people. I mean, people can be draining, but they can also give you some energy. And having not been around people, like my regular circle is is kind of been, it's been a little tough. I get a lot of energy and warmth from the group I'm in the hub I'm in. So there's that part of it too. So
that's such a beauty in that. So I'm happy to see you all. All right, Juan. I haven't met Juan yet, but Juan, do you want to come on and share? Hi.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Juan.
So my name is Juan. I'm located in 13 territory. I'm in Toronto. I work with newcomer youth to help them settle in Canada, newcomer youth as myself. And I find that some of the greatest learnings that I've gotten from participating in circles are really listening and learning from everyone's wisdom, and also learning about the value of being vulnerable. And some of the challenges that I'm experiencing right now are being able to engage people to come to these spaces and participate in the circle.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Juan, so much for that. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And Catherine, we got you left to connect to.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Nice to hear everybody. I learned in this circle. Like I am also still continuing with that focusing with the different topic. Like when they share the information, that I take it the positive, what this can motivate me. Also, I like to listening to learn more. And when I came to this circle, I feel confident to share my information. That's everything. And I am still focusing to keep calm down, listening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So you heard a lot of like patience, trust, making yourself vulnerable. I really appreciated that, Juan, because that was definitely something I learned right off the get-go, kind of establishing protocols, letting go of our concepts of time, really allows that kind of self-awareness. Miranda, yes, when you're sitting in circle, you can't hide. And it really kind of challenges you to think about how you present yourself and how you respond. That's so huge. So there are a couple of challenges that came up. I thought, why don't we can open, I feel like there's few enough of us that we could actually just kind of open up and converse a little bit over this and talk more. So the challenges I heard were like, one, correcting the circle when it kind of goes off, to kind of that challenge of time and like how we gently nudge forward, give it that space, but also give it movement. Introducing people, like setting the protocols and parameters for circle process and prepping for emotion, I think is huge, that you brought up, Angelica. There's that piece that's interesting, Sarah, about the closed captioning too, and how do you have circle without closed captioning, and how do we as adult educators start to move towards making closed captioning accessible and easy? So we'll pick up on that. And then the last thing I heard from, Juan too, how do we engage people in actually attending a circle? That's pretty huge. So let's kind of dig into these a little bit more and talk. And that piece about correcting the circle and kind of keeping it on time. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that. I know as my practice, I find like I don't think I've had any real formal training. I've had peace circle training, but I always find when things are going off, as a facilitator, it's this fine balance of like how to hold the space. And I found the most effective strategies I've used in terms of correcting the circle has been, I've started to be more playful, I think, in the circle, which has allowed me to kind of nudge things forward. It was funny, I think about the regional gathering in Regina, and I remember there was a moment where the circle was kind of getting stuck, and I used my body and went into the circle and started kind of dancing a little bit to kind of shift the attention and kind of get the person who was talking to look at me so I could get them to see the transition. but I don't know if that's like the best way, you know. It's always, we all have our own ways of kind of trying to shift that circle and correct it. I'm just wondering if anybody else has any thoughts about like when have you had experiences with that where you've had to correct the circle? What have you done? How has it worked for you? Do you have any lessons to share with the rest of us?
I don't know if we actually correct the circle or not.
Yeah, maybe it's the language.
And
Go
I
ahead.
think that probably isn't the language that we want to use about correcting, because it's
Yeah.
right and wrong. And really, when you walk into that circle and you're being yourself, it's not right and wrong.
Yeah.
Now, I've been to traditional circles where the elders have led it, and we stay there until the elders say it's time to go. We've eaten, we've taken breaks, you know, but we go back. And a lot of our meetings at the steering level committee, it is like we go in, we eat, we go back, we go eat, we go back.
All day.
That to me is more of a circle like of tradition, okay? The controlled circles, there's an agenda put forth when you've got like a group of people coming to meet, you have a purpose to meet, right? And when you have that time and you say, okay, we have this much time, you're controlling it from day one or from the moment that it starts. So to me, I don't see it as a circle. I see it as someone just operating and playing with it, to tell you the honest truth, because I don't see it as a true circle. I brought in the spirits today with my songs. I lit the smudge. I said I wanted to be in a good way today for everybody. And I sang a song to let the spirits know that I'm willing to maintain that design while I'm here online. I would do the same if I was in the circle. I would use my medicines, and I would start lighting the medicines when things got a little rough. Okay. If someone cries, it's always good to light that medicine to allow people their emotions to calm down, because that's what the medicines are for. But when you start with the correcting of what you expect, well, I got told a long time ago by elders, expectations are premeditated disappointment, so don't start there.
Can you say that slowly?
Expectations are premeditated disappointments, so don't start there.
Do you have like that idea of like lighting smudge and stuff like that is such a good idea, because it like transitions a little bit.
Exactly.
When somebody's kind of maybe taking up more of the space than others. That's a really good tactic. Yeah. Any other thoughts about that? Like that, you know, when you have that kind of maybe dominating person or something in the circle, like how to transition or shift or correct. Yeah, correct is not the right word.
I find that challenging in a circle when if something starts to go in like a negative way, or their negative comments or negative energy, I don't know sometimes how to direct that, other than I'm learning there's a spirituality to the circle. And I think this is what Michelle was speaking about. And, you know, so I in my head, then I'll start praying to keep us on the right path and on the right foot, that the right words will come out, and that whatever is said will be taken in the best way for the circle, because I might be feeling anxious, but somebody else in the circle might need to hear that and grow from it. And maybe that person who is speaking needs to get that energy out then, so that each person will receive it as best that they need, and let it go. Just kind of breathe, you know?
Yeah. I see Sue has joined us. I don't know if I want to put her on the, oh, and she's dropped. Oh, no, she's there. Just wondering, Sue, do you want to introduce yourself? And maybe we've all just went around and introduced ourselves where we're at and kind of what some of our greatest learnings are in circle to share. And then we'll come back to the.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about the meeting and I finally went through all my emails, so I thought, well, maybe it's still on. Yeah, this is Sue Deranger. I'm used to be with the Regina Circle, but I've been in Edmonton since March, so I guess I'm with the Edmonton Circle. And yeah, I'm just interested in what people are saying because circle's very important, but people forget that when we're in a circle and when we're in a group, it's like we're a nation.
Mm.
In a nation, yes, you have personal sovereignty, but everything you do should not be there to hurt the survival of the nation. And we need to remember that, and we need to focus on that, because when we say hurtful things, when we think only about ourselves and this is my reality, and we're not thinking about how we hurt people, then it can be very harmful. So we need to think about those things, about what's more important, the survival of a group or my own ego.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say I don't have ego, because I fight my ego all the time, but that's just the way I see circle. And if there's a lot of negativity all the time, or blaming or finger pointing, then people will want to leave the circle, and that circle should be safe. And I'm just glad to be here, and I'm glad you're still here, and what I heard was good, and carry on.
Awesome.
Hi, Sue.
Bye.
So we were just talking about like the dynamics when we have a circle and maybe it's being dominated, or energy and strategies to kind of shift that. Any other thoughts on that kind of challenge? Anybody?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot.
Please do.
And I think people, when it's dominated and there's negativity, that because of the way, especially writing relations, is nobody wants to challenge it. And people carry that hurt home and they internalize it. And everybody thinks, well, we have to be so loving, we'll just let it happen. And I'm not sure what to do about it, but I've been praying a lot, because I've carried a lot of hurt, and it's taking a lot of time to heal. And I'm thinking that each of us needs to say gently, what's going on here? This is affecting others. What is it that you really need? And how can we help you, whoever it is, for what you need, and how can it be addressed where everybody feels their dignity? And it takes a lot of courage to do that, but I think we need to do that in a loving manner.
Yeah, having more people courageous enough to do that in this space, hey?
Yes.
Sue, you make me think of as well, Sue, good morning, is you make me think about what Michelle said earlier, and there is the dynamic of the circle, but there is a lot of work that we have to do outside the circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those kind of conversations are really important to have within the circle sometimes, but sometimes also outside the circle, to make sure that we're taking care of the person who is carrying the herd, and might be creating this dynamics within the circle, because sometimes there are some things within the circle that might not be the best place, and I don't know how to describe it, but maybe it's not the place to discuss. But there is a lot of work that, at least in my part, I will need to learn to do outside the circle, because I am one of those people that I'm always running, and I go into the circle, we do what we have to do, and then I have to leave because I have things to do. So how to actually create a circle dynamic where we do both the circle work and the outside of the circle in terms of holding the community, which I think is part of it. Part of that is that you were bringing up, Sue. Thank you, and thank you, Michelle.
I'm also thinking the concept of time too, right? So somebody says something hurtful in a circle, and it does happen, unfortunately. But people will shut themselves down, and then they'll start looking at the clock, and they'll walk out the door, and it's not dealt with.
Yeah.
This is what you cannot allow when you're holding a circle. That's the one thing you cannot allow. So again, I say go back to the medicines. Again, Susanna, our other ED, had an excellent way of dealing with that. She did that at the one in Mono, and she was amazing because somebody had said something that was very questionable. They took care of that situation, and the people that were upset in that situation were taken care of also. And they were told to take a step back. Let's find out where this person's coming from. We'll come back and meet with you afterwards. This is the work that needed to be done outside of the circle because the circle was getting really upset, and then it transfers, right? Emotions transfer to the next person and next person. Then by the last person, it's so huge that all of a sudden you've got a crisis, which isn't meant to be. So don't forget those medicines. Don't forget to say, I'd really like to talk to you outside of the circle about what you said, and don't call them out right then and there. Go over to them gently and say, you know something, there might have been something said here. Maybe we have to do a couple things here. And I really, really think that's part of the responsibility of holding a circle. And this is why you need people like elders, like Sue, elders like Merta in the West, and the ones that we have here. This is why we need them. This is why everybody's valuable to me.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Michelle, because I think sometimes if you see yourself as the only facilitator in circle, it's hard to be able to watch and observe and capture all that stuff. So really, having those supports in circle is so critical. Mm-hmm.
I have a technical question. In the circle, when that comes up, like what you were saying, Michelle, do you then say, like, if you're the one sensing that that's something that should happen outside of the circle? Because sometimes you aren't allowed to like kind of cross talk. How, I mean, you put the medicine, and I think that's important because that's, and you keep saying, but how do you do that part?
We can let the person say what they have to say. Then the facilitator, if this is not sitting well with the facilitator, you kind of figure there's somebody else in the room that it's not sitting well with also.
That's true.
So you can say very gently, as you like the medicine, this is not the place that that is to talk about this. Okay. We can choose a different time, a different place, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. And if we need more players, I'll be more than happy to bring in more players. And then we move on. And we don't allow it to get really large, which is why I say like those medicines right away, right? You're already calming the people down and you've got the words there. You know that this could have potential, but if we recognize it right away, then we can nip it in the bud right away before it gets too big.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions about this piece, about the stickiness of dominance, perhaps?
I know one thing that I've used in physical circles before, and I find it helps keep people from talking over each other, is a talking stick, or sometimes it's a talking object. That the person who's talking holds on to, and then when someone else wants to talk, they have to somehow get the object passed to them. And this quite well in physical circles.
Yeah, it's that physical reminder of where the space should be. Yeah.
And these are tools that you can make prior to the circle. So make an event and say that we're going to have a circle. But first we're going to have a circle and make a talking stick so that our circles are safe. Have from the very beginning that particular. So what I've done in our Creating the Change courses that we teach, I have actually brought somebody in, gave a story about the stick that we used, asked the people to participate, to bring something in on that to that stick. And then we, at the very end, attach that to the stick. Here's the start of your voices. If you want to speak, hold this stick. And this is your voice because you're right here. And they're wonderful tools, especially to be able to create that community before you even start, because you're already there. So as much as you want to have that circle right away, if you're unsure, go with tools that are going to make the circle safe first.
I have a question. What happens if, like, it's the end of the circle, it's the end of the evening, or the end of the day, or whatever it is, and everybody's tired, and that's when an attack comes?
Yeah.
What happens then? That's a question. Another question I have is, like, elders were human. I don't even like to say I'm an elder, I'm a grandmother. What if I say something that's hurtful and people think they have to suck it up because I'm a quote unquote elder? What if people think that they can't confront an elder? And how do we address that? Because people are human and we shouldn't put people up on pedestals, and we all have faults. What do we do? And what is it when it's continually at the end of a session? What do we do with that?
Tobacco. I've received tobacco from elders who've apologized for their behavior to me. They have said they were sorry and they recognize that their behavior was wrong that day. I didn't say anything, and personally, at that one elder that apologized, I've had 3, but that one elder, I'm thinking, like, what are you apologizing for? You know, but they recognized their mistakes. Other people may use their voices if they're not intimidated by an elder. I'm not intimidated because I know that you're a person. But then the work that we do, we know that the elders are going to be making mistakes and stuff like that, just like us, just less ones because they've done them before us. Right? It's all a learning process. It's not like, and when you're tired and the attack comes, oh, I can relate to that. But that's when we are on our alertest for tomorrow. When we have energy, we're going to deal with this, but tonight is not going to be when we're dealing with it. We want it to be good. Light that medicine and say, this is for tomorrow. With the intent, put down your tobacco, hand the tobacco to the person and say, we got to talk. And I'm handing you my tobacco, but not tonight because I'm tired, I'm spent. I can relate to what you're saying, Sue, very, very much. But I say the medicines all the time.
So that's a big, sorry.
Go for it, Lisa.
No, I'm thinking that means then that we should have like extra tobacco in our circles so that if this, I mean, I know we're part of the protocols, I think, but that it is there. So if at the end of the day this comes up, we can say, you know what, we need to talk. And I'm thinking also about what you said earlier, like the work that needs to be done outside of the circle. I think that's a lot of reflecting, self-reflecting. Because for the elders to come to you after means that it's stuck in their mind. And if they're spiritually alert, it plays like it's, you know, the creator's prompting, you better go do this, or, you know, something that you need to move on.
Yeah.
But we also need to have that ability as any person to take tobacco, even if you figure it's an elder or a grandmother, and say, I need to talk to you. I feel like, for example, a long, long time ago, this very young, and this elder was hitting on, but it was very uncomfortable. And I got to the point that I was getting really cheeky with him. It was my defense against him. And then that went against all my teaching. So I finally took him to tobacco and said, look, I'm really sorry I've been talking to you the way that I have, but I have felt really disrespected as a woman and as a young woman. And I want to respect you and I want to have a good relationship. And I don't want to talk to you like this, but I'm asking you, please don't do what you're doing, or what can we do to rectify the situation? Until his dying day, he became an elder mentor and one of my best friends. So we have to be brave enough to talk to that person. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And I think that having those difficult conversations is always I, there's always like a lot of factors that play at people feeling safe to have those conversations, and I'm just worried to put all the honors, all the work on the person who is feeling
Hurt.
Yes, because they're like, you're feeling hurt, and then you have to say it, and you have to like, but I'm thinking that there are some conversations that we can have to leverage the power, the decision, the safety of these people, so we can we support them in doing these things. And one of the conversations that I'm thinking about is the intergenerational knowledge, like how like young people, and I love that Juan is here and he's talking about young people, that and how do we include them in the circles, and the amount of knowledge and strength that they bring in, and wisdom of things that we that are a little bit older, that we don't get, we don't know, right? And I like how like also Michelle started talking about doulas and transgender people, and how is young people who are challenging us to think outside the box, right? So how do we emphasize that intergenerational component, but also wisdom that exists in the circles is seems to be important in not idealizing elders, but seeing or grandmothers, but seeing you for the amount, the beautiful wisdom that you represent, the beautiful experience, but also the kindness that we can relate to you in a human way. So I think that is important to build that.
I was in a youth group facilitating for one particular component of their weekend, and each and every one of those youth, whether they were and they were all LGBTQ kids, to me, youth, I'll say, and anyways, all of them had a memory of their grandmother or their grandfather or somebody in their family that gave them a good memory. So one of the things we played on was that is where the respect comes from, right? Mm-hmm. And I never walk in assuming that these youth don't understand that word. I walk in assuming it's the adults that don't understand that word, respect, because they're looking at them like they're needing to be taught. I don't think I've taught any youth anything. I think most of them have taught me. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also your attitude when you walk into circle, that you don't know everything. You need that attitude of wanting to learn new stuff and maybe to cement a few things that you do know. Mm-hmm. But it is for the people, like Suzanne was saying, it is for the people. When you're talking, you're hoping that you're representing yourself and all your ancestors and all the people that are listening to you. And so you never say, I want. Mm-hmm. I want lots, but this is not the place to want all these lots. Hey, Sue.
So I wonder, like, you're kind of starting the conversation, I think that Juan started too, that maybe we can talk about, is like, how do we get even those young people or people to come to the circle? How do we engage them in the circle? Because we know that all of us will go, but how do we engage those others? How does food, music,
fun. Don't sit there and say you're going to read to them the flipping agenda and then a few charters from the books and stuff like that. They don't want that crap on their day off. They want to have some fun. They want to, and you can learn the exercises that we do. Like if you wanted to learn the map exercise that we have of where people come from, that's fun. They can relate to that. They got a visual, and I think a lot of it now has to be visual. So being able to touch, being able to feel, being able to experience all of that, and space, which is something that is very important.
It's a bit more of like a workshop style approach, maybe not selling it as a circle, but circle is integrated in to what you're
Well,
doing.
it is. It can be. Like I've watched the youth. You get your role models in there, your singers. Oh my God! I sat there and watched 20 youth just sit there, listen to this young guy talk about his life and the horrible things that happened and the good thing that's happened, and they were enthralled. They had their video. They were. So you got to choose those things that are going to make them react.
Juan, do you want to expand a little bit more on like your barriers with engagement? Like, do we need to begin a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Michelle. Those are things that definitely help people to come into these places. But my question was mainly about like this current pandemic time, because of course, like our youth programs are very successful when we can see each other and we can feed them and give them community hours and they're gonna have fun. But during this pandemic time, our engagement has definitely decreased. So that is what I find like really challenging, because we have tried lots of things, like maybe connecting with teachers and offering them, like when the school was going on, to improve their grades if they participated, like we've offered even like gift cards, community hours,
Same.
everything, and it's still really hard to engage youth, and also like I was thinking, there is so much wisdom in like the opportunity to have circles, but I don't know how many, specifically like for newcomers youth that I work with, feel like they know, first of all, they know about these circles and they want to participate, and also would like, how I'm wondering how to facilitate or how to offer this opportunity to people to experience this and open up, without like doing something that I don't know how to do, right? Because I'm not indigenous, and like well, I'm from Latin America, so chances are some of my ancestors are indigenous to South America, and some of them are European or from Africa. I don't know, and we were stolen that chance to figure that out back home. But anyways, like I don't know the ways, and I'm like, how can I make this accessible for them in a respectful way? I just don't know because I think they should know, and we try to start all of our workshops like doing land acknowledgement and educating them, because as newcomers don't really know much, if anything at all, about indigenous peoples, unfortunately. But yeah, like I just don't know how to be better and to offer this opportunity.
Yeah, Michelle, you look like you're ready to go. No.
Oh, no. I was just thinking, yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. Yeah, but you're indigenous. I love hearing that you're indigenous.
Yeah,
And
I'm not like, chances are like people from Latin America, I have like indigenous ancestors as well as Europeans, right? Because colonization there was a lot of mix, and but we don't know. We can trace our ancestors. I wouldn't know what nation they are from if I have, but like I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know how, I don't have the knowledge.
I was excited you said indigenous, that you could have indigenous, because you're talking about South America. And
Maybe.
I love hearing people from other countries say they are indigenous. They're not newcomers. They're not immigrants. I love hearing them say they're indigenous. That's what I was so excited about. But getting them interested, I think I'm a little too old to offer them anything that they, would be interested in.
I think one, I don't know if anybody else has the same thoughts, but one, I think that your experiences with young people right now and trying to get them out at the John Humphrey Center, we're having the same issue. Like we've offered food cards, we've offered to bring them out. We've had some success in getting like a tiny group of people together in a park to start. And we're just kind of building on that, and hopefully they'll start to grow it. But the other thing I'm hearing from you is that confidence and feeling okay with facilitating circle when you're not indigenous. And I think that's an important piece to pull out of this conversation. I don't know if anybody else on the wants to offer any thoughts to Juan about the engagement piece, or facilitating circle and being okay with that.
I find that when you have a group of people or have a common thought, somebody adds something that's able to share with others, that each person understands, and that outside of that it could grow, as long as you start with a commonality, like whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's transportation or anything. There's always something that people feel they're not really getting the proper information about, and that could be a place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Contests?
What about the youth? Why aren't we asking them what they need? Why aren't we asking them what would bring you here? They know. They know what they want. Why aren't we asking them? Like, we can sit here and guess, and the older we get, the further we're removed. Like, I see my daughter is really young, and she keeps reminding me she's in her 40s, and that she doesn't even understand all the youth and what they're saying and what their needs are. So maybe that's where we start. Bring youth together. Tell us what you want. Tell us what you need. Tell us what you would like to be involved in. People like to feel like they're important. People need to feel like they're vital to something. I don't know, a youth focus group. I don't know. I mean, I know it's pandemic, and I'm even meeting out and Zoomed out and everything else. But I don't know, the ones that do show up, maybe ask them to network, give them a role in finding out what is it that they want and what is it that they need, and have it youth driven. They love being given that power, and other youth relate better to them. In another lifetime, I was involved in a tobacco cessation project called Kickin' Ash, and we brought youth together, and we trained them about what tobacco cessation was, and we let them design the whole program. And they went into the schools and they talked to other youth, and the youth were excited. In evaluations, they said, well, we thought we were just going to come to another boring tobacco thing. Oh my God, how do I join this? Because they saw other youth leading. How do we give these youth the lead? How do we find out what they want? And how do we empower them to be the youth ambassadors to bring them in?
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I thank you, Sue. Thank you. I feel like I have two reflections. One is, one, we have to adapt to pandemic times, which seem to be no ending soon. And so small groups are great. I mean, we have to work with small groups because we cannot have a big gathering where we are like holding hands and etc. Like, it has to be small groups spread out on a picnic table, 2 meters from each other, wearing whatever protection, making sure that everyone is safe. Because for me, that's one of like the paramount things. Is like, we need to make sure that people feel safe to gather, safe to speak, safe to whatever we're doing. And so many small little gatherings in different places of the city because people are scared of, or people do not want to take the public transit. It's understandable. And so we have to measure and understand what is happening and kind of like adapt to that. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, I think that when I started facilitating circles with bilingual relations, negotiating that I'm coming from Latin America, who am I here, and how I can participate in the circles and be part of the circles was a huge learning for me. And I remember in one meeting, Sue telling me, you're human, and you start there. And I was like, oh, yes. So we are here in the circle, and we have to protect the circle, make sure that we are holding everyone. And I have to start not, but why differentiate me from everyone? But what I have in common is like, I'm human and I want this to grow, not to ignore what history has done to each one of our groups where we come from, but to find the commonalities and find where we can leverage each other and learn from each other. So I have found, and if I can refer to my experience, because it's the only thing that I can talk about, it's like I have found for myself lines and limits of what I feel comfortable doing and what I don't feel comfortable doing. So when I'm sitting in circle, I always feel like having an Indigenous person or Indigenous leader that we can refer to and get guidance, because it's not my process. It's not what I grew doing, and I have to learn. And I am that understanding that I'm in the process of learning, and we need guidance. I can't, but I'm not going to restrict myself and hold myself because I am not from here or it's not my process. I'm human and I belong. I just have to be guided by someone that actually knows what they're doing. I feel shy on using medicine. For me, I'm not comfortable doing that yet, and I have to recognize it. So if I feel that that is needed, then I should ask someone else and get the guidance to do that properly, because I know that's not mine. And I can do that. So I feel like those are the things that I will use it if it is lightened, but I won't start anything. And I hear Lisa saying, I pray that things, when I start hearing negativity and things are going, like the negative energy is kind of growing in the circle, I pray. And so I think that that's the way we integrate in the circle. Like she prays in her own way. What I would do is I start like really rooting into my heart and trying to find what is that people saying, what is what they need, and kind of like rooting there, because I don't have that faith to hold into. So I try to take ground on my heart and find a place. So it's just like negotiating, but starting on the place that we are humans and we have the right to belong, because we want this community to be better, and we want to do it with good intentions. We want to learn in the process, and we need guidance, and we find the places to negotiate that. I think that's where I have found to myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Going back to the youth there, I've never met a youth that isn't able to think of somebody else. So right now, I know that we're actually thinking of our homeless that are challenged right now. And so we're getting our youth involved in collecting clothes. The ones in our programs, we know that Christmas is around the corner. We've got to figure out ways to get money for what we can do for them for Christmas. And I know it's a project outside of what your goal is, but sometimes when you work towards a goal, there's other things that pop up in that process. So that might be a help, or that might be an idea, to look for a project that everyone can get into. And I know there isn't a youth that wouldn't want to help the homeless.
Yeah. I hope that helps one. I think one of the things that's been sticking in my hand as all of you spoke was like, one of the things I've had to learn is like trusting it's the right time, right people, right place. And if it's only 3 people, it's just the beginning of like expanding it. And so I've always found like with our young people is that we've been working with JHC is that it may seem small, but then we just slowly start expanding it and not, I think one of the things I've learned over the last couple of years has been not to feel like we have to try and catch all, but to like build strong centers and like allow it to come out. So just some other thoughts. Some of the other things that we talked about. So I'm going to transition us a little bit. Some of the other things we've talked about, and I know we have Migmohan on here now. Migmohan, I'm wondering if you want to introduce yourself and just say hi to everybody, and then we can kind of keep the conversation going. I know you're in the car though.
Yeah, she's driving. No, she's
Oh,
not.
hi.
Hi, Meg.
Sorry. Hi, how's everybody?
Good, good.
I've been listening and really feeling. I'm sorry I'm late, and I'm just listening to some rich conversations, and really appreciate the feedback and the the sh- the positions of some of the voices from the young people. And uh, my name is Mig Mahan, and I'm from Askinawabadich. I'm a grandmother from Dish clan. Jagich is my maternal clan, and I'm so glad to made it to the circle here. And actually, tomorrow. I arrived in the city to participate in the elder and youth bonding that's been going on for the whole month of July. Tomorrow we're gathering again to reflect on the discussions we've had and to see how we want to move forward in the next series of discussions.
Thanks so much, Meg. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So I'm gonna bring us back. Like there was kind of three other things that we talked about in terms of challenging. I thought maybe we can, see where this goes. But one was kind of that piece about prepping for emotion in the circle, like, and how do we imagine? I feel like we've talked a bit about that, but I'm curious if we want to talk a little bit about more when we have that emotion in the circle. If we have somebody that's crying, those kind of things, like what is the best way as facilitators to hold that? But also the other piece that we were talking about there is like introducing people to the process and prepping them for that emotion was really big. And so I'm just wondering, I know in terms of me, I always find like I don't establish protocols well enough to prep people for that. So maybe that is good that we'll be talking about that. But I know one of our kind of learnings in the West is when somebody is kind of expressing this emotion or crying, that we don't interfere, we don't intervene, and we let them, like, well, we can pass them a box of Kleenex, but we just let them get that out. So I'm just wondering about, again, opening it up to anyone to talk about that, like how you maybe set up that piece for prepping people for emotion and how you deal with emotion in the circle.
I think that sympathy, being part of understanding. When you cry, you release 63 toxins from your body, so crying is a good thing. Being sympathetic, not ignoring the person, relating to the person, understanding, listening, just listening, not really telling them what they should be thinking. Let them talk. Just listen. I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Terry.
Dead on, Terry. Absolutely right. Let them talk. Give them the choice. Give them the chance to be able to get those feelings out. But then again, also be aware there's might be aftercare work that's required after the circle's over.
Yeah, you're right, Terry. And the reason we say don't interfere is if you put a hand on someone or you hug someone, you stop that flow, and it needs to come out. Body language is just as important as language, and people can tell if you're listening and if you're concerned, and there's not much more to say after what Terry said. And you're right, Michelle, there could be aftercare. I have a question though. What do you do about people that are constantly attacking, constantly making people feel like they've done something wrong? What do we do about that? Because people don't tend to respond, and then it's internalized. What do we do when somebody's always saying, well, I need this, I need that, and you didn't give me this, and what you did was wrong, and blah 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 blah. And it happens in groups. What do we do about that?
I think sometimes people just aren't ready for the circle yet. And I think maybe they need time to reflect on their behavior within the circle. And we ask them to gently remove themselves for a period of time until they're able to come back and understand that we're here to support each other. And if they need extra time outside of the circle, then we have to provide those resources that allows them to get into that space.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a circle amongst ourselves, like our colleagues or is there's certain expected behaviors, right? I've been with elders circles though, and they're totally different because there's lots of emotions out there, and they give that time to get those emotions out there. And in one case where I was sitting in the circle, this woman went on for a good 15, 20 minutes. But at the end of the circle, the about face that happened was amazing. And somehow, somewhere, somebody was able to pull their negativity and say, this is what you can do to help yourself, without telling them what to do to help themselves. And I think some of it was just after they finished the rant and giving them their space, they got pulled aside and said, hey, how are you feeling? We listened, we heard, we care.
I wonder, Mingmahan or anybody else have any reflections on that one? Like when there is that person, like correcting it in the space, as Michelle says, in that really kind, gentle way. But any other thoughts about, yeah, when somebody's repeatedly kind of disruptive and negative?
Like, this make Mahan. Well, I think one of the things that is the format when we're in that situation. Being in the circle and expressing once the I think that really helps. And when we're in that kind of somewhat not in a negative way, but in a good way of an environment where everyone has a voice to share, and we're there to express, and that we're not there to respond, but we're there to listen. I think when we really understand the circle and explain, because sometimes we, like in any ceremony, like we just don't walk into a ceremony. There's a whole preparation and orientation and really understanding about how we're gathering. I think that plays a big role, like how like what elders would say, like being in the actual ceremony is part of it, but the most important part of it is the whole preparation of it. And so I think that's really an important ingredient to working with those different dynamics in communities, in family, and so on. And that the circle always provides that space that every one of us matter, and that we honor each other where we're at. So those, I think, play an important piece, because the reason why sometimes we're going in that space, when we're in that space of, maybe defiance or whatever, but maybe that's not the right word, but when we're looking at life through the wounded lens, and really express ourselves out of that lens, I think it's I think we begin to understand about like when they're being really listened to. And I know it was said that when people know when our people are really present and listening. And so when someone is present like that for you, there's a side of you that opens up and knows that you matter in that circle.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I just wanted to quickly add, because I was listening to Juan, sharing about young people's participation, and they've tried different methods to engage young people. And again, that's again the same thing. Is about looking at the preparation of it, and kind of those building blocks. How we get the youth engaged is it starts at a young age, and for us in our community up this area is we focus on the dreams. And so when we're working with elders and youth, we'll talk about prophecies. When we mention prophecies, everyone is interested in the prophecies because this is about how our future is what's the outcome of the future if we continue these kind of old practices, or or shift that practiced way of being. One of the things that we're sharing with the young people here in Wabanaki is that the prophecies came from them. And somewhere along the way, it's been forgotten that the prophecies came from the young people, and then they work with the elders, and the young people work together because of the life experience. The elder and the youth work together to decipher those prophecies. And so dream time and listening to a child when they share their dreams at a very young age and they work their way up, that's their inner truth, and that's their direct connection to the creator. And the dream world is very important, maybe even more important for some of us than the the day world. Night world is the dream world is more, because that's about working in a multi-dimensional layers. And and the best part of this is that every youth that shares their dream, and when we listen, they're sharing a fabric of the whole creation of life as we know it. So every dream is fastened into our life ways. So, and that's the role of the youth, and they're being listened to because all this information is flowing through them when they're being present in their own spiritual way. Yeah. So I just wanted to
That's awesome.
talk about, share that to reconnect in each other, and that the youth have a voice. Not anyway,
That is
so much
beautiful.
more.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Wow.
And do you want to say more?
No, just that was beautiful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it makes me think back, Mi'kmaq, to like some of the earlier circles we did with COVID around having the elders like Tito and stuff. It's like knowing that prophecy thing. The prophecies are in all cultures, and so all different elders and grandmothers and grandfathers can be part of that. And I find with our young people too that really draws us in. That's really great. And then coming back to the piece around the disruptive person, I think what I really heard from you, Michelle and Meg, and that is like. And I think this is important, is whoever it is, even when they're being disrupted, if they're continuing to be disruptive, I think what we need to understand is they don't feel like they're being heard. So what do we need to do to make sure they feel that? And maybe that is that piece about being able to give them that time outside the circle to do that work and deepen that conversation perhaps. Because I think those ones that are disruptive are the ones that we kind of do start to shut off and we don't hear. So we create this, we manifest this cycle of stuff. So that I really heard that from the two of you. Miranda, you had your hand up. Did you want to step in?
Yeah, I in our circle, when we're talking about emotion, and I mean the thing about the other thing about showing emotion in a small circle or a group setting is it makes people uncomfortable, and that's why your automatic reaction is to try and stop it with comfort, or but it's important to be empathetic and understanding, and yeah, you have to let them have it out. And in our circle, we will light the smudge again, and we'll go over to a person and just, it's, I've assumption, nobody ever said why, but my assumption is that maybe we're giving them strength to just let it go, carrying the smoke up. But the other thing, talking about people being discomfort and maybe emotions getting a bit much, is if we light the circle for people in tears, why aren't we lighting the smoke for people who are expressing negativity or anger or just, and because it's still pain. They're both expressions of pain, and we need to try and acknowledge it somehow, and, if you light the smudge, maybe they'll, it may not necessarily stop them. But I also like the idea of just, afterward, just giving them a cigarette, some tobacco, a cigarette, have some available, and just, between you and them, just say, I'm really uncomfortable with what happened in circle tonight. Can we talk at some time? Right? It's so hard to
do that.
It's hard to acknowledge people's anger. It's so much easier to acknowledge people's sadness, but we need to acknowledge people's anger, or the more other negative energy. But yeah,
that's awesome. Yes, thank you, Miranda. So
I have a word for it. It's validating their existence.
Thank you. Yes.
I think that was really well said, and I value what you said. I think that's absolutely really important. And yeah, validating both the sadness and the anger. I want to pose a different question. And I got this, it really stuck with me. I was watching a show, and in it, the guy who was creating a lot of chaos came to a point and said, you know what? I don't understand why the sin that he realized that he is sinning and making a mistake, but had no idea what the sin was or whatever. So people were responding, but he himself was ignorant as to what was going on. So I think and the point I'm bringing that up is that sometimes maybe that person is unaware, and and that is a different kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
Where they're making mistakes. So mistakes are being made, but they don't know. So the wisdom is welcomed on that one.
Blissful ignorance or malicious intent.
Just not knowing, just
blind ignorance. Yeah.
Innocent ignorance, maybe.
Yeah, go ahead, Miranda.
Yeah, I'm just thinking again with the, what we have control of, and I think this pandemic has really, really taught a lot of people what we do and do not have control of. I always go back to this, even for my own sort of coping, even before the pandemic. It's what do I have control of right now? And the only thing we can control is our reactions to how people are expressing themselves. And sometimes, we're aware, and if they can't come to that awareness, you can't make a horse drink water, but we can control how we react, whether we're hurt or whether we can decide whether it's not worth it, whether it's worth the trouble, whether it's worth our peace of mind to pursue. Is this person actually broken? Are they having a bad day? And then it's just kind of, it's important to resolve it, but we have to be careful with how we react, because sometimes that's all we do is react. And I think maybe when we come together, maybe it's a better idea to maybe have some, some sort of more protocols in place, and just be really, just more guidance. I guess. Sorry, I guess I'm getting tired. I need another coffee, but yeah.
No, that's appreciate that. No,
Great
that's
to add. I'm losing my thoughts here. So, but yeah, that's what I mean.
valuable. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's also teaching methods if you want to go into the next phase, which would be like playback theater, which is absolutely wonderful for people to be able to see what other people are seeing, and using those kind of things as teaching tools for later on down the road. Not that moment, not a good time, but later on down the road, and when nobody's angry, when the emotions aren't there, and you can start showing what it is that other people are seeing. I love playback theater. I think it's a wonderful tool.
Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. So we have one kind of last outstanding kind of question from our opening circle. I thought
something about the last that is bustling in my mind.
Sure.
And I think that understanding and allowing emotions, all kind of emotions in the circle, is healthy. I think we also have to be mindful of the emotions that other people are having and how that can impact them. And there are some in the circle that might feel more threatened and by anger, and the anger directed to them. And we have to be also mindful of that in terms of how these emotions are affecting not only me, and if I'm facilitating a process, but the people around me, not because I can protect them, but also because they will need some work outside of the circle as well.
Yes.
I cannot control, if I use Miranda's words, I cannot control how other people react or how other people feel, but I can identify that might be other people who are feeling unsafe, and that's something that the circle, that is really hard to handle in a circle. So that was puzzling my mind,
because it affects the dynamics of the whole circle, the whole nation, as she says. Yeah, thanks for that. So just kind of building, kind of thinking forward, and just wanting to address that last question, and then we can kind of take it where we want to go. But that piece about, I'm kind of coming back to Sarah about this piece about, for those, what if and when we have people in our circles who are hard of hearing, who are deaf, how do we facilitate that, for example? Because we often have that with elders as well, where where we've sat in circle and they can't hear what's happening. How do we work with that? How do we accommodate that in circle? I don't know, Sarah, if you have any thoughts off the top of your head from your experience, but maybe we could build off that, because I think this is a really critical piece, actually.
Well, as I say, people in the past have accommodated me with closed captioning in virtual circles. That works well. In real circles, we accommodating me may mean using that talking stick so I know who's talking.
Okay.
And also, don't criticize me if I look to be staring at a person. I am trying to read their face. And sometimes when I'm reading someone's face, it looks like a stare.
Good to know. Okay. So that piece about captioning, having the talking stick, letting people look at each other in the face straight on so you can observe.
And sometimes people think that I'm staring at a person when really I'm not.
You're following the conversation.
I'm trying to figure out what they're saying and trying to figure out the whole conversation piece.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts about that from anybody else with like any experiences with that, like even with elders? Yeah, Michelle, please go.
Okay, so we actually have somebody in our one of our groups here in Ottawa who will stand up and say, I am hard of hearing. Can you please speak louder? Can you project your voice? That woman is awesome for using her voice, because let me tell you, she'll use it all through the meeting. And as annoying as it is, people get in the habit of being able to speak up and using their voice out. That's part of it. There's also tools that we can use if needed, and those are headphone speakers that will
amplify.
Yeah. amplify the, but these are things, if you're aware of people that have disabilities, or you're, especially if you're gearing towards disabilities, have these things available for them regardless of whether they need it or not. Always, it's just a preparation, and that way when they walk in the room, they won't think they're an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important, not being an afterthought walking into the circle. I know that.
Yes.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes. And making sure that you, if you do have a registration process, don't hesitate to ask, like, is there anything that we can do to make it so you can fully participate in this circle or this conversation? I think is really important.
And
Okay.
also ask for your volunteers. Like if you're hearing impaired, sometimes we have volunteers that do have the language that could give you sign language, and they'd be more than willing to come for the meal. I know I have a couple of people that are willing to do that. So like, feel free to ask for those kind of resources too, right?
And recruit those resources. Hey, that's awesome.
But we also don't need to put the onus on the person with the disability to ask for things.
Yeah.
We need to try and figure out what's needed within the people that are coming. I know that as a disabled person, that it's really hard to ask for what you need. Somebody from, I'm with Barrier Free Saskatchewan, which is a disability group, and somebody had sent me an article yesterday, I think, and it talked about how we just, okay, I can't go there, okay, I suck it up, I go home. I can't be involved in that, so I suck it up, I go home. What do we need to do to make it open without people feeling like, I feel like I'm a burden asking for this. I feel like I'm asking for too much. It might cost too much. It might do this too much. How do we make our groups accessible without putting the burden for somebody to ask for it?
Good point, Sue.
Question. I don't know, do you have any, Terry or anybody have any thoughts you want to share on that one? Like, part of for me is like just knowing who's in our circle and having that personal connect, so I'm able to adapt. But yeah, I don't know if, are there any other thoughts from anyone?
Well, I'd like to think that people are being positive and they want to change things so that it could be accessible. But there are times when I feel like I'm an outsider. The fact, just ask me. You want to know what I want? Ask me.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what makes it easier. Not all people will voice that, but we need to make the effort. Just to have the effort made makes a major difference. That people care about each other.
So that's go
sorry.
ahead. Go for it.
That's so true, and it's like a lot of times it's unconscious. Like, it's an accessible world, and it's all unconscious when we're doing agendas, even for our workshops. Okay, well, we're going to go on a walk. Well, what people can't go on that walk? Oh, we're going to do a dancing activity. Well, what people can't do that? It's not saying don't have them, but what can you do to make it more inclusive, to help everybody be a part of it, instead of stepping aside? I mean, what can we do and how can we do it? And we need to have these discussions among ourselves. It's easy. You just don't think about it because in your world, it's not that way, and it's not people's fault. But how do we be more cognizant so that everybody can feel like they're part of something?
Yes. Okay. Lots of food for thought, I think, for all this element, but I think it's like not making it an afterthought is a really big piece, and asking. And okay, so I'm looking at the time, and I know we only have like 10 minutes left, and I'm thinking maybe this is the time that we do kind of a closing circle. to kind of any kind of final thoughts or takeaways or reflections from our conversation today. And then I'm hoping I can like end specifically on Mi'kmaq to kind of close us off. So does that sound acceptable? Like if we could just kind of go around and just like, what's sitting with you from our conversation today, and kind of any reflection would be welcome. So I'll start at the bottom of the list this time and work way up. So Catherine, do you want to share any kind of final thoughts or takeaways? Hiding in the background. Okay, and Sil, I think we never got a chance to hear from you yet. Do you want to just say hi, introduce yourself, and any thoughts on what you've heard?
Just a minute, I'm trying to unmute and type and do all the things.
Oh, okay.
Hi. Sorry. And eat. So amazing. Just I'm so happy to have been allowed to be part of this, and just to know that the listening piece for me was the most valuable. The piece where I could hear you all, the other people in the group speaking, and because I'm white, so I'm not going to take up space there. So I also made some notes, and I'm hoping that we can have some of the reflections that was recorded at some way, shape, or form, so that we could do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be having a circle very soon with about 100 Indigenous people, and give or take, in the circle, and I haven't got the foggiest idea. So this is really helpful.
So where are you at? Where
Toronto. I come from Toronto.
Well, thanks for joining us today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Miigwech.
So Sue, over to you. Any kind of final closing thoughts?
You're muted.
Yeah. Unmute, Sue.
No, I'm just sad that I forgot about this, but glad that I found it at least in time to hear parts of it, because it's really good to hear what other people have to say. It's good to hear about the inclusiveness. And I had a revelation, because to me, circles are just circles, and they've been part of my life forever. And I never realized that other people felt uncomfortable and that it wasn't their place to run them or to be part of them or anything else. So it's quite a revelation for me. And it's like I was saying, that, able-bodied people don't think about it because that's just their world. Well, circles are my world, and I guess I need to start thinking about what I've heard here. So it's a lot of food for thought for me, and I'm just glad to be here with all of you. It's always good to be part of that, and it's uplifting, and it gives me food for thought. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sue. All right, Miranda, I've got you up next.
No, just really glad to have been able to join this morning. And I got to admit, I did not know what this was really about until you started talking about it. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Okay, out of the square, like we're all in squares now, and we're literally missing our circles. But so it's been really enlightening, and it's just been nice to see so many people, and yeah, it's just nice to connect again.
Thank you so much, Miranda. It's good to see you. Lisa, I'll pass it to you next.
Unmute, Lisa.
Sorry about that noise in the house. Okay. One of those things I think that is stuck out for me today, or a couple of things. One is being conscious of those who are coming into the circle and the needs that they have, so that they are comfortable, and remembering to make that space safe. And also, I think in our circle, we need to in some way get some younger people on board and keep them on board. What Juan was speaking to has resonated with me. What can we do to keep them? Because we had some younger ones come, and I don't know the reasons, but that stuck with me as well. So it was really good. And the emotional part of it in terms of understanding that process and learning what to do and managing it, I think that was important for me in making me feel more comfortable in the circle. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Juan, I've got you up next.
Hey everyone. So I feel very grateful that I was able to be part of this circle, and I'm really grateful that I got to meet you all and hear your thoughts. I feel like they really in my mind. And two of my main takeaways are what you shared, Angelica, about your experience, like becoming comfortable in participating in this kind of space and helping facilitating them. And I also take away just how comfortable I felt and everyone's ability to just listen and share respectfully and openly. And I hadn't felt like in the right place to share this kind of concerns, like with my interest in participating and learning about this. So I'm really thankful. Those are my main takeaways.
Awesome. Thank you, Juan, so much. Okay, Sarah.
Well, I just am happy that we can get together again, and I like the process. And I like learning.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry, I've got you up next.
Okay, thanks. The positivity of this group was just amazing. I learned so much from you. From all of you, when everybody gets their brains together and focuses on one point, to evaluate, to criticize, to think. That critical thinking is so important to come to a conclusion, and I feel like a sponge here, and I'm just gathering information. So I would like to thank you all.
Thank you so much, Terry. I feel like I'm always learning from you, so it's so nice. And Angelica, I've got you next.
I feel so many things. What is stacking in my mind is the combination of inner circle and outer circle, because I think that there's a huge learning for me. And as Lisa was saying, the youth and intergenerational part of our circle here in Edmonton it's also buzzing in my mind. And yeah, and I think also like I will call it love, the positivity, love, kind of like, even though we are so far away and we have to look through these boxes to create the circle, look through our little box at home. I feel the connection, and I feel how each one of you, I feel like your energies and how each one of you is uplifting each other. So that makes my heart full and content. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Angelica. Well, and Michelle, I'll do my takeaway, and then I'll pass it to you, Michelle, and then you can just pass it to Meg. So my takeaway, sorry. My takeaway, I think, is I think I'm in circle, and I have these challenges with circle a lot of times, but we don't ever really have a space to talk about them and talk through them and just think about like little strategies like lighting the smudge. So I just really appreciated just having space to just talk about it, because I think there's been some things for me that I've often felt stuck and I haven't felt confident. I think my biggest challenge in circles is my confidence. And so listening today kind of gave me some real ideas and strategies. So I really appreciated that. So Michelle, I'll pass over to you.
Well, I learned a lot in the fact today that people were surprised about the emotion part. That's the part I love most about the circle, is because I get to see their emotions, I get to hear them, I get to feel them, and I know they're real then. They're at their realest when they're showing those emotions. So I live in circle too, just like Sue. So a lot of this stuff is old hat, I guess you could say, but it's also kind of like facilitation skills too, right? When you're doing a circle, you still have to use your facilitation skills. And part of the circle is you're not alone. You have other people beside you who have those same skills, different skills, new skills, other skills, and they can assist you. It's not about you running the circle. It's about the circle working for you. And that means participation from everyone, and allow these people to play the role of if this person needs comfort, if this person needs to be talked outside of the circle, allow them to do that, because if you're busy facilitating, you have your role. So maybe choose people in the circle that say, hey, can you keep an eye out for this? I know you're good at that. Hey, can you keep an eye out for this? I know you're good at that. And trust the circle absolutely, and the spirits that are in here. I have a meeting with my boss. I am so sorry I have to go. Absolutely love this. Mig Witch for this. And Mig, love you. And I know what you're going to say for closing is going to be awesome. Love you.
Before we do, I think with everybody moving up and down with mics, I think I missed Sue. And Sue, did I miss you in that closing circle? No, I didn't? Okay.
No, you didn't.
Okay, I'm not losing my mind. Okay, over to Mig. Hey, Mig.
Okay. Here's here's where I'm at. I'm juggling my life with my beautiful little eggs. My second generation eggs is how we really say when we say my children in my language or my grandchildren. I'm literally saying my eggs. I just wanted to first, again, it's like I'm so glad that I had a chance to see all of you and get to hear what we're weaving together, because we are weaving something together, and we'll be able to and gift that into the future. And so I really, I can, that's how, when I'm thinking or speaking in my language, that's how we would talk. It sounds a little bit out of sort when I translate it in English, but I mean, that's important to relay who we all are, how unique we all are, and that it's really every one of us in the circle is it's not hierarchical, and that we are an important ingredient into what we bring into the circle. And so the facilitation model of it even is not as Michelle described. It's very, you can see the skills being developed, and that every one of us is able to work in the circle much more comfortably than in a hierarchical where, you know, you have to stand up in front of everybody and so on. But this way we stay in a close and nurturing circle, and that when the circle begins, after we describe after we share what our needs are, because that's what you know, the principles of each time we gather as a people is we bring forth what is important to us and how we want to be together. So all that is taken care of too, about presenting what our needs are and how we want to be together and how you want to participate or not participate, but to be present, you know. So it's the circle is as complex as the heart of the woman, as the heart of our sacred mother, and our emotions are represented through her weathering. So that's for me, like when we look at circles, it's really all of us being who we are. So I want to just share Thanksgiving offering in my language here from Wabanaki, from the people of the First Light, which is the East Coast, furthest East Coast. And so each day for me would be to acknowledge the first light, which usually comes in the east around 4 a.m. And I'm woken up 3:30 each middle of the night, and I just sometimes enough to say Welalin, thank you to the first light, and I just slip back into another realm. But so I want to offer that Thanksgiving in my language. Chikisu, Nukumichina, Niskamichina, where you lalin dandelikan muyak ni majuahan, dandel mawali agebidel tiek, dandelikan adiek, dandelik sit hamualaget kik mijuajis, malchuesh kito abiadijik, dandel mo delap the midiju sit hamu, dandelap the midis mimajuahan, at the wachtemai debiganat and Bohanuan and Glech regularly nuchitna. So thank you.
Thank you, Migwe. Walalan. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And I know this is just another part of our journey. So I'm looking forward to the journey ahead, and we'll be in touch as we move forward. So I'll let you all have your day. I hope you leave in a good way, and we will see you all very soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Hi, Kathleen.
Yeah, see you evening.
See you tonight.
Leave.
Okay.